All right, are we recording? Yes, it looks like it.
Perfect.
Okay, sweet. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining Katie and I in this session. And I'm playing the role of support dude to Katie, who is the content expert here today. And this session is Adaptability as a Strength. If it is outstanding, please note that on the form that it is Adaptability as a Strength. If it's horrible, please note it as Equity Roadmap, Josh and Mike Dobson. So just trying to kind of set that tone there. No, it's all good. We're all good friends, and we've been ribbing each other this week about presenting at the same time. So thank you for joining us. Katie, you want to say a few words?
Absolutely, thank you. I don't know that I'm the content expert on adaptability as a strength, but I've sure had to do a lot of it recently. So I'm Katie Hauser. I'm the recreation superintendent with the city of Sacramento. Been involved with CPRS for basically my entire professional career in District 2. I was on the D2 board for a few years, and most recently I was on the recreation section board. So I've been with the city of Sacramento 3 years. I oversee community centers, our community center division, which is fairly large. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I also oversee adult sports and leisure enrichment contracts. So just a lot going on with a big agency in Sacramento.
And I'm serving as the interim dean for the College of Education and Allied Studies, which is code for what happens when you leave a meeting to go to the restroom and you come back and you find yourself in charge. And so I'm filling in, I'm from the Department of Hospitality, Recreation, and Tourism, where I've been the chair for the last 6 years. And prior to coming to Cal State, I was in the field for 20 some odd years. So adaptability as a strength is something that we're familiar with in our field, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and some strategies we can use to fine-tune our game. And so we've talked a little bit about introduction, and here's kind of our plan for the session today. We'll talk about adaptability as a strength and the concept of strategic flexibility. We'll break it down and unpack the concepts. We'll have some small breakout rooms to discuss how this affects our work. We've got a couple of case studies actually that we're going to talk about, and then we'll get to the breakout rooms and wrap it up with some action items and questions. So, adaptability as a strength. It's a noun. Adaptability, which is the quality of being able to adjust to new conditions, the capacity to be modified for new use or purpose. And then I guess my first question for everybody today is, on a scale of 1 to 10, rate your own personal level of adaptability. So if we looked at adaptability in life, what would that look like?
And if we could put that poll up now, Chris.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's where the poll is.
Okay, where would that be?
It should pop up when she puts the poll up. It should
Okay.
just pop up for everybody to fill in.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. The access that I sent over is not, I don't have it anymore. So, Chris, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay.
If you go either to the top of your screen where you just hit record, there's also polls. Your polls are loaded there. So it should be a graph. You're going to click that and then it'll pop up for everyone to share. Perfect.
All right. How about that?
Fancy.
There you go.
We're being adaptable on the fly. This is awesome. So please go ahead and fill out the poll.
So for anyone doing the poll, you do need to answer both questions to submit if you scroll down at the bottom.
Okay, we'll give it another minute or so. We have, man, this is better than election polling. We got 40 of 50, we had 73% people have voted. Well, now it went down to 71, so I'm sure there's probably some electioneering going on. Somebody was stuffing the ballot box. I see you working. All right. Well, for the most part, looking at the poll, our highest percentages are 7s and 8s, so pretty high on the personal scale of being adaptability in life, which is good. Your personality, you're pretty adaptable, pretty easygoing, that kind of thing. So let me ask you this, and this is kind of here, I'm gonna end this polling here for the moment. And I think I'm going to share the results here. So our winning poll number, most folks were 8s, very adaptable. And so I guess the question then that I ask you is how many in this group, and we can put it in the chat. I don't think this is a poll thing, but we can put it in the chat. How many of you participated in team sports growing up? That's a yes or a no. Pop that into the chat. And so based on what I'm seeing in the chat, and there's quite a few yeses, probably, I don't know, 4/5 are yeses, there's a few no's here and there. And the reason I asked that question is that I think adaptability goes hand in hand with the concept of playing team sports. And so if you're a team sport person, what does that have to do with adaptability? Well, as the game changes, you have to adjust your concept. You have to figure out your game plan as the game changes. Think of, say, the game of water polo or the game of soccer. There's a turnover and right away you go from offense to defense. And so you have to figure out and adapt as things move along, right? So I've heard it said that people that end up in leadership positions, most people that end up in leadership positions tend to have a team sports background. And I heard one administrator of a high school tell me once, he said, look, he says, I don't know a whole lot about math and algebra and specifics and that kind of thing. That wasn't what I studied in college. But if I got the call that our math teacher was out that day and we didn't have a replacement and somebody had to come in and teach math, he says, I'm pretty sure I could go into the room and figure something out. And it's that concept of being able to figure it all out that is an adaptability strength. All right. So I'm going to close this and let's go to the next slide a little bit. So adaptability is being able to adjust to new conditions, and it has to do with our capacity to change. We've done that quite a bit. And how much of our day, let's be honest now, how much of our day is neat and tidy with clear decisions about how things should be done? We don't hit any speed bumps. I'm going to say for most of us, that's not the case at all, right? I see some heads shaking. That's just not it, right? Every day when we come to work, we live for the fact that every day is different and that every day is a different challenge, and you don't know really what you have a general plan for the day, but it's not always the way it doesn't always turn out the way we think it's going to turn out, which leads to that second question that you answered in the poll. What is your adaptability to kind of go with the flow? And so I see these are as two different things. So our personal level of adaptability is kind of our general disposition, our nature of how we do things. And then going with the flow, particularly in a work environment, can be different. but we have to be remain flexible at all times. I really love this quote from Bruce Lee. This guy, you know, master martial art person, but he talked about the concept of water. And Matt Galindo being a martial artist, I'm sure you've heard this one before in the past, but Bruce was talking about, you know, don't get set into one form, adapt to it, build your own, let it grow, and be like water. And then he kind of went into this, you know, if you put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. If you put it into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. And so water can be something that flows into any situation. It can crash. It can be, you know, any number of things. It can be a solid form, but in its truest form, water is something that always kind of goes to its common point or level. And so I think the ability to sort of have that mindset of, I'm not really sure what's going on here. I know we got to adapt. I know the situation is changing, but the ability to sort of be flexible and be like water is one that will make us stronger as leisure professionals. And so that kind of leads me to this concept of strategic flexibility. So we know as champions in the business, we're adaptable and we're pretty good at moving into gray areas and able to work in the business world when there's just not a whole lot of absolutes. And so I guess the question I have is, how do we take this adaptability to a next level and achieve this concept of strategic flexibility? So I'm going to give you a question. Let's say you're the captain of this aircraft carrier and the admiral comes to you and says, we'd like to make this aircraft carrier faster. We'd like to make it more nimble. We'd like it to be able to turn on a dime and be really, you know, this attack ship. And how would you do that? And so you might look at it and say, well, I could make it lighter by taking the planes off. I could maybe make it a little more nimble by taking off maybe the flight deck because it's pretty heavy and bulky. But then at the end of the day, it's not an aircraft carrier. And so you've kind of taken away the core mission of what that ship is meant to be. And so I think the goal here with strategic flexibility, using this as an example, is that we want to be nimble while we're acting on and achieving the mission of our organization. But how do we do that in a way that doesn't fundamentally change our structure to a point where we're not able to act as we're designed to act? So I'm going to talk about this kind of rule of three, or the power of three, in this concept of strategic flexibility. And so normally in an organization, if you're the leader, you're a person that is, you know, certainly you're committed to the mission, and you've got your challenges, your goals, your objectives, and what you're out to accomplish. But I'm going to recommend and suggest that maybe in this concept of strategic flexibility, we look at it a little bit differently. If you design your team with someone that is clearly focused on the commitment and mission, this is what we're here to do, this is what we're here to accomplish, this is it. And then have someone that focuses solely on uncertainty and what are the potholes and curveballs that might get tossed your way. And then the leader would be the person that sort of acts as the guide and focuses and challenges the assumptions of the other two. So let me give you a quick example of how this might look. So if you're an aquatic center, because that was a large piece of my last job, and your focus is to offer swim lessons, that's your thing. If you don't offer swim lessons, nothing else at the pool you do really matters. So what are some uncertainties about that? Well, at the facility that I ran at one point, we ran out of water space. and time during the day to offer all the swim lessons and people on wait lists. So then we tried to figure out how could we meet the needs of those folks. And so we looked at all the curveballs and things that could, I mean, we looked at renting homeowner association pools. We looked at renting hotel pools. We looked at golf course pools, anything we could do. And then we had all the potholes and curveballs that we thought, oh, geez, what's this going to happen? How we're going to do this? And what are the legal ramifications and everything else? And what about the next town over that just built that huge aquatic center? We're going to lose business to them. So what are we focused on? So the ability to move as conditions change, but staying focused on your mission is pretty challenging. And I think the couple of things I might add is that you need to build a team that looks at this with a continuous change mindset. Oftentimes we're set on, this is the way we've always done it. And this is we open the drawer, pull out the folder, change the date, and run the program without looking at how we might be able to adapt and change and do things differently. And so I think we need to build a team of continuous change mindsetters. And that's hard to do. But I think the trick in that is that in your team of continuous change mindset folks, you really only need to convince 20% and get 20% buy-in to join that team and buy into your model. And if you get that core 20%, another 60% are going to follow. Most people just come to work, do their job, and if Katie and Chris think this is a great idea, yeah, I think it's a good idea too. I'm going to go with it. And so that 20% will get you 60%. Now that last 20%, they're going to be the ones that just don't get it. And they're going to be the ones that throw up every roadblock humanly possible. But I think one of the things with that is that over time, they're going to find themselves being the person that's alone in the room complaining. And they'll either come along and groan here and there, or they'll self-select out of the organization. And that happens. People get tired of it and they'll just move on. One other piece when it comes to uncertainty and being flexible in this is the ability to gather as much information as possible to make your decisions. You know, in any decision point that you make, you're really only going to have about 60% of the information you need. You can do all the research till the cows come home, but once you enter the human being into the equation, things get funky, right? And consumers will change minds and do things differently. And so how do you get that last 40%? Well, that's kind of a gut decision. What does your gut tell you? And so I would encourage the guide in this group of 3 to really take a good look at the 60% of the information that you're gonna have. And then, what's your gut tell you? Do you got a good feeling for this? Can we make this move in a way that is gonna make us successful? And so that's how I would encourage you to think about this concept of strategic flexibility. Now I'm going to pass it over to Katie. So Katie, I'm going to stop sharing and then you can pick it up.
Perfect. Yes. If you can make me the host real fast, that would be great.
Okay. I don't know. Can I do that? How do I do that?
Oh, no, I think the room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The room
Actually, Chris, so I don't know why I don't have any functions, but Chris, if you go to participants and then you're going to go to the right top corner of that, you're going to find Katie and then you're going to.
Katie, you're hooked up.
There you go. And then Chris, you can also switch me to host too, and I could be co-host.
Oh, I see how this works. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I lost functions when I sent it over.
Okay. No problem.
Perfect. Thank you.
Can do that. Yeah, you're the room host. I see it. Okay, you're up.
Okay, hold on. Okay. Okay, didn't want to start where I was. Cool. Well, I hope everybody's doing well. And it's really nice to see so many familiar faces, even though it's just virtually. I hope everybody's doing well. I've seen people that I used to work with out in the districts and people that I like actually used to work with at other agencies. And I think my sister is even on here. So I hope everybody's doing well. It's good to see you all. So I should obviously preface this by saying that, like, certainly not an expert, just some really, as we were thinking initially, Chris and I did this with School of Rec in September. And we, I think as Parks and Recreation professionals, really see ourselves as flexible and really adaptable generally. Certainly COVID has put us into a new, I would say, a new level of this. So here we are. It's a super good example. I put this photo up here. This is like, I don't even know when this was, you guys. Now I can't keep track. But here I am, like literally pretty sure those are my pajamas. And I'm at a manager's, this is my manager's call. I have my headphones in, my glasses are still on, like straight hot mess. And then there's my 7-year-old who's doing math on YouTube, I'm pretty sure, with his distance learning. And my toddler right there, who just, of course, has to sort of be up all in the grill with like blue, what I'm pretty sure is blue stuff in her hair. So adaptability in multiple ways, right? Not just at work, but our work lives look completely different as well. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has a picture like this. With a husband who, instead of like assisting me, is taking photos for us to remember. So as I said, I'm the superintendent with community centers, leisure enrichment, and adult sports. And so this case study is going to be a super kind of quick rundown on the aircraft carrier that I am currently steering, because the city of Sacramento is a very large organization. So as a quick pre-COVID background here, the city of Sacramento has 18 community centers and clubhouses, six of which are leased to CBOs, but the rest of them are city managed. The staff in my division total 143 FTEs. Where we have currently 54 of them vacant, which we are just going to continue to hold on to, as we don't know what our budget impacts are going to be like. But previous to that, we got the centers that are city run, not the lease facilities, got $2 million in expansion money to increase the hours of operation, increase all the public counters, because not all of them were full center pay points, and to expand our programs and services. So again, $2 million extra dollars allocated the mid-year budget process before COVID. So we were in the process. We literally hired customer service reps for every full service pay point, got all of the programs ramped up, all of the staff hired to increase and run all these extra services in our 7 major centers with pay points. And then, of course, we hit COVID and everything came to a screeching halt. But now I had this, I had 143 FTE of staff, which includes 6 recreation supervisors and another manager that assists with this, and a custodial supervisor. So a huge team when you think about 18 community centers and clubhouses, and the staff that go with managing all of those. Custodians, customer service reps, coordinators, all of it, a legit aircraft carrier. And so we come to a screeching halt in spring, and I'm not going to go too much into depth on these because this is your guys' stories as well. I am sure we all did some version of this, or we shut down and literally turned over to something else. And we did that. So we halted, in spring 2020, instead of closing everything down, they looked to our centers to open essential worker childcare. So that was the first sort of round in March when stay-at-home orders were there. We opened 8 centers to serve 300 youth for first responders, medical professionals, and essential city staff. And we did that in a 4-day turnaround. We got the notice on like Wednesday night at like maybe 6:30. We had to set everything up Thursday, Friday for the mayor's press conference on Friday at noon to open them on Monday. So it was literally 16-hour days from Thursday to Monday to get these open, because we flipped literally 8 centers, flipped them over into these essential worker childcares, which we ran for, basically until summertime. We also did curbside meal distribution at those 8 centers. We did breakfast, lunch, and weekend meals in partnership with our school district, and sort of 60,000 meals to our neighborhoods. We did Great Plates delivery for seniors, which is actually still going on. Mask distribution for businesses. 3 centers, 300,000 masks for small businesses in the county. And of course, while we're trying to do that, we flipped everything to try to build up some virtual programming and kindness kits, wellness deliveries. But it was a big switch, right? Where we went from really having this robust programming to shutting everything down and being very, very minimal. While at the same time, people were really scared, including, you know, myself included, right? We're out, and at this point there was no, you know, it was this March, so there's no mask mandate at this point really yet. The staff we don't have any information, the staff are nervous. And now I'm telling them, hey, I know everybody else is staying at home to do the stay-at-home order, but you're not. You're going to report to your center. And here's what you're doing. It's not what you normally do, but I need you to stand outside and hand out meals to people when they come by. And I need you to hand out masks, right? So when you're managing an aircraft carrier of very seasoned professionals as well, the city of Sacramento has a wealth of institutional knowledge there. I think I have one program supervisor that is new, but the rest of them have been there 20 years plus. So very, very, just very, very seasoned, right? They have a ton of institutional knowledge, but they're also very used to doing things a certain way. So that, of course, can be a little bit difficult. We'll talk a little bit about that moving forward. And then summer fall is a similar version. Again, I'm not going to go too much in depth. If you have questions on any of this separately, you can certainly contact me about how things are going or what we're doing. But our centers are still closed to the public. Even now, they're closed to the public, except for registered participants. We did limited capacity summer outdoor and indoor camps. We continued meal distribution, emergency cooling centers, and clean air shelters. And here's one of the things where that adaptability really, really comes in is, you know, we're already in, and this is still happening to us today, right? It happened to me this morning, in fact. We're already in process of providing emergency services, right? We're doing very limited summer outdoor camps. We're providing meals every day, breakfast and lunch meals to the community every day, you know, sometimes 1,000 meals a day. And then we get the call from the city manager's office that you need to open cooling shelters now too, because it's going to be 105. So with COVID already. So how do you make those adjustments when I'm literally calling you and saying, hey, it's 8:30 in the morning, at 12, I need you to open a cooling center. So move the kids, the 12 kids that you have, to a different socially distant room, or take them outside. Oh, it's too hot, you can't take them outside, but across multiple locations as well. And then we finally deactivate the cooling shelters, and then there's massive fires. And now we have to open clean air shelters, literally on the heels of the cooling shelters. So why we're still trying to do meal distribution. And of course, I believe that was Labor Day weekend as well. So everybody had been sent home. And now we have to reboot all of this again. But it's not, if you've ever, I'm sure as we've all been on the back end of some of these shelters, saying no is not an option to them. It's more about like, how soon can you activate them? Do you need help with staffing? But it's not a yes, you don't get to say no to these. So really being flexible, being strategic on how we did that. So I said, okay, fine, we can open air shelters, but we're only going to open 2. I can staff 2 of them. Because I had to be strategic in what I was able to provide to them. But again, it's not like you can say no to those. And it's still something that I'm being super aware of. Our centers are close to the public. There's going to be a time where we're going to have to go back and list all of the services that we were able to provide while the centers are close to the public. And I want to be able to add all of these things. So strategically, I'm thinking while I'm doing this, okay, how can community centers and our community centers teams who are not doing their traditional programming, how can they continue to support the overall mission of the city and provide those crucial services to our residents so that we can continue to show how essential we are, really being strategic in how we make that change, because we're not providing the recreation services that we were doing before. We're just not able to do them right now. Again, for fall, same thing. Our centers are still close to the public. We started a SAT class distance learning support. So our centers are doing very limited after school, just like literally, what we can fit in a socially distanced room for underserved and at-risk youth. And then in our centers as well, in different portions of the center, we're doing distance learning support. for people who have been referred from the school district. So really trying to utilize all of our staff, because now they don't have, they're not working on ACEs programs, they're not working on sites anymore. A lot of our staff they don't have work. The actual program staff don't have work. So we really tried to revamp, again, tried to be adaptable and say, okay, well, we have this need with distance learner support for people families who cannot stay at home. And so we set that up. We also are doing voting locations, continued meal distribution, drive-through flu shots, etc. Really just trying to refill our workload with things that are necessary now, really looking at what the needs of the community are now and how we can meet them. Okay, Chris, I can handle this for you if you want to, so we don't have to go back and forth with the sharing. One thing I will go back and say is that, and we'll talk a little bit about more of this as we come back from our breakout room, but the power of three is really it's something that's been very, very helpful to us. There's three sort of managers that oversee this large division. There's our general manager of the division, the whole division, and then there's myself and one of my colleagues, Anthony, and we oversee the community centers division. And so sometimes the power of three looks different. Sometimes I'm looking for potholes and Anthony's dealing with the mission and Jackie's trying to keep us in check. And sometimes we veer off course and now I'm doing, the general mission and Jackie's looking for potholes and Anthony's bringing us back. I think that's an important piece to remember as well, is that yes, we play those roles, but sometimes those roles are going to look different based on the situation and how everybody's feeling that day or how everybody's feeling in that situation. Because I can tell you that there have been days where this whole slide back to tier 1 that we've done in Sacramento County has really sort of shown us, right? We switch all the time. And so as an example for this week, I think I've had a staff COVID exposure at probably every location where we had to go do, okay, this person had direct contact here. We're going to go, trace them out. They have to be out 14 days, et cetera, et cetera. We've done that we've had at least one every day for the last maybe 7 or 8 days. So we take turns in how we handle that and how we deal with that, because it can just become burdensome. So really being able to adapt that way as well. So Chris, I'll let you talk about what you have going on at Cal State East Bay.
Yeah.
And then we'll breakout room for a few minutes.
Sweet. Okay. Well, if you just want to forward through and put all the bullets up, then I can run through those real quick. Perfect. Thank you. So at Cal State East Bay, it's a little different, but the same, but I think the complexity is maybe a little odder than some of your organizations. East Bay is a campus of about 16,000 students normally. And our budget for the college, I'm in the College of Education and Allied Studies, which is 2 undergrad programs, kinesiology and hospitality, rec and tourism, and then 3 post-baccalaureate programs. So teacher education, educational leadership, and educational psychology, which offer teaching credentials, master's degrees, and a doctorate. And our annual budget for the college has been about $10 million. 90% of which is tied up with staffing, faculty, and lecturers. All that was beautiful, and I was happy in my role as department chair, and then I became the interim associate dean because the associate dean retired, and all of this kind of happened. And then we went to the CPRS conference in March last year, came back, and then we get to deal with working from home and offering all of our classes that were in person now online. In the middle of this, about June, the dean decided that she was going to retire, and she left at the end of July, and there was really nobody else hanging around but me. And that was kind of one of those where you end up being the person just because you're stuck doing the job. And so what I learned is that they provided us what they called a pencil budget of $8.5 million. And the pencil budget is an odd term maybe for some. It's a projection. And the reason it's a projection is that oftentimes we don't receive our actual budget until September because we're based on revenues from the state and a state allocation. as well as dollars that come in from students that register. So as it would be this year, because everything was moved back on submitting your taxes, we didn't receive a budget until late October for this current academic year. And so we had to kind of float this pencil budget idea, which was $1.5 million less than normal. And so we faced with the challenge of getting a budget in August when the fall semester started. We've already programmed all of our classes for fall. We went from mostly in person with a couple of online programs to all online. And our college only offers 4 classes in person this semester. And all told, we have about 2,500 students on campus right now taking in-person classes. Most of those are classes that are, lab-based, science, that kind of thing. And so we were faced with the challenge of how do we trim $1.5 million from a program that we have in place? How do we trim classes and programs? And so we made a couple of executive decisions to get started, and then we had to be a little more nimble than we've been before. So we looked at our overall budget, and we're funded based on enrollment. And we looked at enrollment, and we thought our enrollment was going to drop for fall because of COVID. As it turned out, our enrollment increased, which was good because funding follows students. And each student is worth about $5,200 a year in revenue for the program. So that was good. And then we had to argue with, well, can we operate online efficiently versus face-to-face programming? And how are we going to do that? And what are options to continue to do that? And so what we did is our online instructors became coaches for all of the in-person instructors. And that was a real hard learning curve for a lot of the faculty. About halfway through this process, end of September, early October, the president of the university decided that even though we had 2,500 students on campus, we really should have all of the staff come back and work on campus. Well, that was a little odd because we've got staff now, but no instructors on campus. So what are they going to be doing? And so we had a lot of pushback from staff and how that's going to work. We have had a COVID case and had to work through that and set up all of our containment plans and everything. Because our funding is related to enrollment, we had to look at other ways to get funding to continue to run some of these programs that were already set up because they're cohort based, meaning that they have a group of 30 or 40 students, and that same 30 or 40 students continue. So it's not like we can just cut classes. It's a program that's that they're taking for an accreditation or a credential that we have to run. So we looked at university extension, which is another piece of the university that folks that aren't university students can take classes. So anybody that from the outside can sign up for an extension class on something. That nets extra revenue for us. But by netting that extra revenue, the students in those programs don't count toward our regular enrollment, which is where we get our regular funding. And so it's been a balance of how to do this. And then at the same time, we've got some programs that would like to grow and how to do that. So looking at the potholes, there are so many of them, and then we're planning ahead for next year, and we don't know where we're at with the budget. We're planning on the same 8.5 million, and we're trying to make sure that our program is in check and that we're funded appropriately at a minimum at the core, and then move forward. And then in the mix with that, we're talking about layoffs and everything else, but that's a whole other animal. So that's a little bit about how we're trying to be strategically flexible at CSU. And now we're going to head to breakout session.
Yes. So basically what we're going to talk about in these breakout sessions is because I want you all to have an opportunity to chat about how this is looking for you and potential challenges that you're dealing with. I have had lots of challenges. I'm honestly still dealing with challenges every single day as this situation continues to progress, to stay the same and also to progress. That's one of the interesting things about this situation is how things stay the same, but then also change on a daily basis. It's really sort of strange. So really talking about that. Let's talk about how this is looking for some of you, and then also what your challenges are and how you can best position yourself so we can have those conversations. So we're looking, it's 10:42, probably about 8 minutes or so in those breakout rooms. Are you able to, Eleanor, are you able to do that? I don't know how to do that.
No, Chris, can you click me as a co-host? If you go to my name in the participant section, hit more, make me a co-host, and then I can do the breakout rooms.
Got it.
Perfect. Okay.
And then we'll come back at about 10:50 to the main room and wrap up with some lessons learned.
Okay. I actually don't see the function for breakout rooms. Chris, I might need to walk you through it. So when you're going down to the polls button, there should be a breakout room button. You're going to select that, and then you can assign everyone randomly, and it'll go straight to that and assign everyone.
Okay. And we're going to do 2 rooms. So we got it. Ready, set, go.
Perfect. Everyone, if you guys can hit your join. Awesome. Again, you should be seeing a join button. Go ahead and select that to be added into your breakout room. You've not had that pop up on the screen. If you go down to the bottom of your screen, there is 4 little boxes that says breakout rooms. You can select that, and then you can join from there, the room that you were assigned.
Okay.
Or you have something to say. Oh.
Yeah, we ended up in the same room. How did that work?
Okay, well, hopefully
I'll leave and get in the other room.
Okay.
Chris, you're on mute.
I need to get to breakout room number 2.
Okay. So if you click breakout rooms, you should be able to drop yourself into that room.
Well, it only shows, okay, here we go. Got it.
Okay.
Hello, we're here now. Wow, that was hard. How's everybody doing? Go ahead and unmute, and technology, right, at its finest. So with our fellow group members, you know, we've all had to adapt in our current roles, and had to figure out things on the fly, which is what we're best at. But we'd like to talk a little bit about, you know, trying to figure out what your range of adaptability is in programming and where you can best position your programs moving forward. So if you have ideas you want to share, or things that, topics that you'd like to bring up, or even questions at this point, and then we're going to go back to the other room. So
I'll hop in and start. I think kind of going through this process, there's been, you know, adaptability. A lot of times it just boils down to trying something new. I know I'll speak for myself. I'm not very tech savvy. But when I started to all of a sudden try new things, and okay, I'll download this app and I'll try that. Oh, I'll try this. Oh, I don't have a scanner at home. Is there an app for that? Oh, there's an app for that. It's really easy. You just take a picture, and now there's a PDF on my phone. But I think that that's one of the key takeaways that I've really started identifying for myself is, hey, if I'm going to be adaptable, I have to first of all try. And trying is the first step to it. So I think with, I presented earlier on summer camp, so I won't go too much into that. But I think that's one of the big pieces is as we go through these difficult and trying times, you know, what are the takeaways that we're getting from it? And a lot of times, if we look at it as kind of as an opportunity that, hey, this is something I may have never tried before, I may have never experienced before, and kind of try to find that silver lining throughout. A lot of times it'll propel you to that next step and kind of give you, like Chris was saying, that 60%. And then from there, you can make a more educated decision on kind of what's the next step.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think it's good to be able to say and tell your team and share with your team where you're comfortable that, you know, I got some anxiety about this. I haven't done this before. This is new. This is maybe a little uncomfortable. And you might be able to build that, you know, okay, we're all a little uncomfortable, but we're all uncomfortable together. So let's try and figure out how to move forward from there. And I think it's okay to be able to fail a little bit too. You know, that oftentimes in our programs and in our organizations, failure set up as such a horrible thing, right? We're not built to fail, but that's how we learn and how we do things, learn to do things differently. So excellent, thank you. What else? Who else?
I'll go. Switching to COVID, like we were able to, kind of one of the cool things was we were able to bring a lot of classes in-house where before we had contracted it out. And some of the classes we were looking to offer was a wide range of fitness classes from like Zumba, yoga, even some like kind of like a CrossFit style interval class. And all those things we were looking forward to offering this winter. And when we were in the orange tier, that looked great because indoor fitness, our capacity was at 50%. And then in the blink of an eye, we went to the purple tier and now we were at 0%, so you can't do that at all. And so just having multiple game plans. So like we're still offering it in our activities guide, and our plan is hopefully we can offer it at the 50% if we can get back to the orange tier, but then scaling back those numbers, or if we can't offer it all, the plan is to go virtual. So I think being adaptable is also having multiple game plans. I know like in aquatics, everyone's got their emergency action plan. X happens, you do Z, and you just have those steps. And so just having multiple plans, so if it does happen, then you know where to go.
Yeah, I think that's outstanding. And I heard it said the other night about this COVID thing that it's not really a switch that's an on or off, but really kind of a dial that we have to turn up or turn down. And one of the unique challenges that our kinesiology people are facing, and it's been fun to watch, even though they're frustrated as hell, is trying to figure out how to teach basketball in a virtual environment. And they've come up with some unique ways, and they're doing lots of filming and videos trying to figure this out. So for sure, you got to have multiple game plans. What else?
I think one of the interesting things, and I'm going to speak as the District 3 president on this one, is it's interesting having to work and plan programs, and we're all sort of answering to obviously a larger regulatory group, whether it's our county health department and our state. And the most amazing thing to see that District 3 has done with both counties of Contra Costa and Alameda is the realization, I think aquatics has always done this, but to now see it spreading out across sort of all the rec disciplines of working collectively as a group to move forward. This realization that Contra Costa County and Alameda County is going to come out with guidelines and dictate certain directions we go in. And if we're not a part of that conversation, then it's often getting dictated to us in a way that we're not fully prepared for or even capable of doing. But if we get out in front of it and work collectively as a group, they listen to us. I'd like to think they listen to us at least a little bit better than if it's just Concord calling Contra Costa County. When it's Concord, Walnut Creek, Martinez, Pleasantville, Brentwood, Richmond, Pittsburgh, like we suddenly have this collective voice, and then all of us sort of moving in that direction together.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say, if you're not at the table talking about it, you're on the menu. So you want to stay off the menu, you want to be at the table. And the more folks that you have, you know, it's critical mass, you're going to get attention and get heard, which I think is great. That's outstanding. And thank you for your leadership in District 3 as a lifelong D3 member.
Thank you.
What else?
I'll share real quick, Chris. I think, and I'd be curious to see if other agencies have seen this as well, that their department, your Parks and Rec or Recreation, whatever you specifically are named, if your department has been recognized in your agency as being the flexible people, the people that can adapt, you see some of the other departments that just have had a hard time figuring out how to roll with the punches and the constant change, and this isn't the way we do it. And for the most part, I feel like rec agencies have been, or the rec departments in an agency have been able to, okay, well, this is what we have to deal with now, and this is how we're going to change and modify our programs to still offer programs to our community. And it's still been successful. Yeah, maybe not all that we hoped it to be and what we thought it would look like and how we've always done it, but we've all been able to figure out a way to keep going, keep moving forward. And that's some of the stuff I keep just hearing from various departments in our city and our city managers, like, you guys keep doing it. You keep pulling it off. You keep a positive attitude. And I think that's just, I guess, I don't know, motivates me personally and professionally just to be like, okay, we can do this. We can continue to be the folks that can persevere and keep moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and that's really our wheelhouse, right? I mean, we're the ones that end up being the community problem solvers, and the departments that end up with things like cemeteries, airports, solid waste, you know, all those ancillary type things that you wouldn't think would be a good mix with Parks and Recreation, but we end up with it because we can just deal. We can bring people together and solve problems. So outstanding. I think we have to go back to our group because we have like 6 minutes left, and Katie's a taskmaster and all that. So I'm not really sure how we do this, other than I think we're supposed to exit the room and go back to the main room. So we'll see you back there. What are you doing hanging out in here, Tamara? Come on, we got to go to the other room.
I don't know how to get to the other room. I'm on an iPad.
Yeah, how do you get to the other room?
Leave. There's a leave button.
Yeah,
I'm leaving.
You're going to go to the same button that you would leave
right.
the meeting for.
That's funny, because that's a lot of the stuff I was thinking that I'm hearing them all talk about, so I feel better.
Woo! That was hard, but I think we're back.
You're back. Okay. So I'm not going to actually like put the PowerPoint on because it's being annoying, but we only have a few more minutes. So we're going to just wrap up with some of the lessons learned that we have found through this, and how to really use that adaptability. Because again, to Chris's point, all the way back to the aircraft carrier, if you continue to take things off and peel them off and make multiple adjustments without really thinking about how you're doing them, then that changes the identity of what you're doing. It changes the identity of your work. It can change the identity of your organization and your department, the culture, how you do things, which is not always a bad thing, right? We've really been able to say, forget about how we used to do things. It's gone. It's not coming back. Let's rebuild from here, which has actually played well in some cases for some of the work that my team was doing. I say, oh, it's not Katie saying don't do that anymore. It's COVID saying don't do that anymore. And now we're not going to do it ever again. Yay. See how that worked out? So putting the spin on that. So just very quickly, you know, how do you continue to have staff adapt to the staff capacity to make quick adjustments? And it's difficult, right? But continuing to connect the humanity of the work that we're doing to create that staff buy-in. When you see people need our services more than ever right now, whether that's recreational, in person, just the social connection that we're providing to people through our recreation programs. And then also maybe including any emergency services that the department is providing, right? Because we really want to provide a lot of recreational services, but a lot of our neighborhoods, the families legitimately do not have food. They don't know how they're going to pay rent. They can't even buy food to put on the table. So they don't care about Zoom bingo because they're trying to figure out where breakfast is going to come from. And that's where we, you know, so it's a combination of trying to figure out what role we play in that. Which comes to the next thing about really clearly defining what our role is through that lens of public service. What does our community need? That is how that leads us through how we change, right? Because it changes on a day-to-day basis. And our staff, if you have staff in the field still, I know a lot of people working remotely, but you still have an idea from the public what their needs are. And so really, instead of it being more about the organization and how I personally like to do things and how I personally like to deliver rec programs, what does our community need right now? Maybe it's not bingo on Zoom, but maybe it's a drive-through for seniors where they come pick up exercise packets on exercise and new stretch bands and a little handmade pie that we bought from the bakery down the street, and you know, some Thanksgiving recipes. We did that last week. So maybe, you know, really it's just sort of filtering out what our role is on a larger level, not just as recreation professionals, but through that lens of public service. And then be present as leaders and lean into specific strategic roles, and really be able to tie that language back for your elected officials so that when they say, what have you been doing? Why should we not cut your funding next budget year? Because we all know those questions are going to come. You can tie that right directly back to what you're doing. Let me move this back. We have 2 minutes here. And so really, this is kind of goes back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier, but responding to the public needs as they change, because they do change regularly. And if you're lucky, you have your finger on the pulse and you get that information, you know, right away. I live in a very vocal community, a very vocal city with a lot of different neighborhoods that have different needs, but they let us know. So a lot of it is socialization for youth. That's a big campaign in our city right now. So we're trying to make sure that a lot of our emphasis is put on supporting youth and their families, whether that's through camps or distance learning support or childcare referrals, which we're really working through all of that right now, to providing masks. So we just currently, I talked about how we did mass distribution for businesses. Literally this morning, the Office of Emergency Services dropped off another 500,000 masks to 3 of our locations for distribution to the general public, because they want everybody to mask up now that we're having such a problem. So again, that's not what we do. We don't do mass distribution, and yet here we are. And identifying essential services and prioritizing those services in alignment with your mission. Because again, we are recreation professionals. We don't want to get off track and become emergency service, staff, or staff who only do things online. How creative can we get? But what are these essential services that we're needing to provide? At the City of Sacramento, we branded our basically everything moving forward, Rediscover Recreation. That came right after the stay-at-home order. You can see it down here on the cover of our catalog. Just back to basics recreation, right? When the stay-at-home order was in place, where do people go? They went to their parks. Rediscover what recreation is, baseline, right? Like, go out to your parks, come out to an activity, go play pickleball, go play tennis. And so really just sort of branding it that way. And that's I think our tagline moving forward for the for the foreseeable future, because we want to remind our community what essential services Parks and Recreation is playing through all of this. So again, those are a handful of super quick lessons. I'm still learning them. Every single day I learn new ones. So maybe if you see this presentation on a schedule down the line, maybe listen to it again, because I might have new things by that time. I'm sure that I'll have new things by that time. Chris, do you have anything else?
No, I think it's, thank you for everybody's comments in the breakout rooms.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. Certainly we learned a lot and had to adapt on the fly with technology and things that we didn't realize before, which now we know. It's excellent. So yeah, come see us again, because this presentation will be different as we continue to evolve and adapt.
Perfect. And here's our contact information. You can find us. I'm sure you can find us. So, but here it is. We love talking with everybody. So certainly feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, thank you so much. I hope you guys have enjoyed the conference. I'm wearing my A stuff for sports. Look, I didn't say that earlier, but here we are. Enjoy your happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the.
I got my Seahawks jacket.
Yes, yes. You're a
Seahawks.
Seahawks fan.
Okay.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Chris.
Go Hawks.
Thank you guys. That was a great session. For everyone, I have uploaded the link to the survey in our chat. And then I believe there's going to be an email coming out later today, again, with that survey. So make sure you guys do those so we know how we did and we can provide some feedback to our speakers. Again, thank you guys. Great job. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.